We are determined that expropriation without compensation should be implemented in a way that increases agricultural production, improves food security, and ensure that land is returned to those whom it was taken from under colonialism and apartheid. Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa. I think we need to take a good hard look at that place. Might be something a little something kind of something going on over there. I don't know.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where I am pleased to announce I've just finished writing a book, and it is all about how everything I told you for the last 5 years was a total bald-faced lie. So you should pay me to tell you all about the lies I told you, so be sure and pre-order today, because Daddy really needs new hair plugs and a new jacuzzi. And also, good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Thanks for spending part of your Memorial Day weekend with us. Here is your golden age of Western civilization news roundup for the week ending 23 May 2025. Dateline Newark, Monday, 19 May. In a follow-up to a story we first brought you 2 weeks ago, New Jersey Democrat Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, or LaMonica the Four-Armed Shipper Queen, as we have come to lovingly know her around here. She was officially charged this week with assaulting, resisting, and impeding a federal law enforcement officer, stemming from the incident earlier this month in which LaMonica the FSQ showed up with a couple of other members of Congress and the mayor of Newark and a partridge in a pear tree, unannounced and with clearly violent intent, for the express purpose of creating a disturbance, causing a riot, and hopefully getting arrested and getting some sick viral footage so we can use it for fundraising, y'all. But LaMonica the FSQ says she is not chastened and she will not be silenced by no crack-ass, racist-ass conspiracy. Shit! That was strange. It felt for a moment there like Black George Washington was trying to take over and do the rest of the roundup. But here, let's hear it from LaMonica's own facehole. And as you listen to these words, consider them when weighed against the actual footage you have seen with your own lying eyes of this big, ridiculous woman very clearly assaulting federal officers with her elbows and her forearms and her very ample posterior. And hey, I guess it makes sense to use the biggest weapon that you brought with you. Ask Rikishi, he will tell you. Running into people with his ass, it was his finishing maneuver, and that dude is a legend. So just for fun, as we read LaMonica's statement, let's count the lies as we go. Quote, earlier this month, I joined my colleagues to inspect the treatment of ICE detainees at Delaney Hall in my district. I guess that one could be seen as truthful, so we'll give her that one. We were fulfilling our lawful oversight responsibilities. That's a lie. As members of Congress have done many times before, that's also a lie. And our visit should have been peaceful and short. All right, I'm willing to call that one true. Instead, ICE agents created an unnecessary and unsafe confrontation when they chose to arrest Mayor Baraka. As like a 5-alarm pants-on-fire lie. The charges against me are purely political. I guess we could call that one true. I mean, as a practical matter, you pulled a very dumb political stunt and you got arrested, and so yeah, I will give you that one. They characterize and distort my actions. That one's a pretty hilarious lie, since we've got, 3 or 4 different body cam angles on the whole thing? I mean, when you launch yourself toward another person while wildly swinging your elbow toward their face, how many different ways are there to interpret that action? And no, the judges will not accept, that was just legislative oversight. Sorry. And speaking of that, we've still got one left to go, one little line. And they are meant to criminalize and deter legislative oversight, end quote. And she closes with perhaps the biggest lie of all, as you do, of course, because here we have a complete idiot who thinks you and I are also complete idiots. She thinks we are such credulous fools that it would never occur to us to think, well, if you wanted a tour of the facility, why not just call them and schedule a tour? Why show up with a rent-a-mob and 2 camera crews and start banging on the gates and assaulting people? But yes, clearly it was the ICE personnel who instigated the physical confrontation here. You guys were just minding your own business. So God bless you, LaMonica, you and your flying forearm of doom. I think I speak for all of us here at the Blast Radius when I say we look eagerly forward to seeing you working in the independent pro wrestling circuit after the voters throw you out of Congress early next year. Dateline, Washington, Tuesday, 20 May. Well, I guess if you came here tonight hoping to hear this reporter throw down on dull, unexceptional, narcissistic, disingenuous, intellectually stunted, self-obsessed, impossibly annoying female members of Congress, then I think you're in luck. Because Nancy Mace was in the news this week too. And if Nancy Mace is in the news, there is approximately a 117% likelihood that she is talking about herself, and a corresponding 94% likelihood that it is something sex-related she's talking about. And our girl Nancy checked both of those boxes this week because is Congress just the same thing as OnlyFans now? Is that where we are? And have I mentioned lately how much the all-consuming gynocentrism of our present-day political discourse really warms the cockles of my heart? How all political messaging is crafted to have maximal appeal to female emotions and female predilections? How every question in every news interview is framed in terms of feelings and emotions? Now, I am not here to say that women's suffrage was a disastrous mistake, but back to the Nancy Mace story. So, earlier this week, because Congress and OnlyFans are the same thing now, Nancy Mace announced on Twitter, as you do, that the following day, during an honest-to-God U.S. congressional hearing, she, Nancy Mace, was going to show her nudes to the whole wide world. Because apparently that's what being a conservative woman looks like now. Telling people they should tune in so they can see your lady bits. Very classy, very dignified, and it has to be said, it seems like rather strangely exhibitionist behavior for a woman who defines herself as a survivor of sexual violence. Now, if there's only 2 things you know about Nancy Mace, you know she was the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, and you know that she once got R-worded, because those are always literally the first 2 things that she volunteers about herself. Seriously, go and try to find a Nancy Mace interview where both of those things are not mentioned in the first 5 minutes. I bet you can't do it. Spoiler alert, because it doesn't exist. So, what piece of legislation is it that's being debated that caused Nancy Mace to exclaim, "Ooh, wouldn't this be a great chance to show my nudie pics in committee?" Well, it's a bill that seeks to make revenge porn into a federal crime. Does revenge porn need to be a federal crime? Is that the sort of thing that our legislators ought to be spending their time legislating on? No, it does not, and it is not. But don't tell that to Nancy Mace. who was obviously very excited to be able to show her naked ass cheeks to America's children and her conservative Republican constituents in South Carolina. Now, could Nancy Mace have just as easily made whatever point she was attempting to make about being a revenge porn victim, whatever point that might have been, without blowing a nude picture of herself up to the size of a freaking movie poster and placing it on a stand in the committee room in full view of the TV camera? Yes, it seems like she probably could have done that. But she still wasn't done yet, believe it or not, because after first teasing the display of the nude photo and then actually displaying the nude photo, later that evening she tweets out the nude photo along with a very lengthy diatribe about what a bad, terrible guy her former fiancé is for making her, Nancy Mace, the victim of revenge porn. Now at this point, mightn't a reasonable person say, don't your claims of victimization ring a little bit hollow when you were showing these same so-called revenge porn pictures to a much wider audience than ever would have seen them otherwise? And mightn't that same reasonable person also ask, wait, shouldn't the moral of this story be that you shouldn't let anybody take a photograph of you that you don't want on the freaking internet? Well, yes, a reasonable person certainly could pose both of those queries. But it seems in the end that Nancy Mace just wanted to hurl abuse at her ex-boyfriend while showing off her nudie pics, and her job as an elected member of the House of Representatives furnished her with a lovely opportunity to do just that, and in the process to leave no further doubt that she is a ridiculous, unserious person who should not be representing anybody anywhere. Are we sending our best to Washington, ladies and gentlemen? Well, you fucking tell me. And speaking of Washington, Dateline Washington, Wednesday, 21 May. In a story that serves as a powerful reminder that 1, Trump 2.0 is way more awesome than Trump 1.0 was, and 2, we should never forget to celebrate every moment of Trump 2.0. In fact, we should celebrate it just as hard as Nancy Mace celebrates her own titty pics. President Trump, he just made a damned fool out of the president of South Africa the other day because the dude damn well asked for it. Because let's call things what they are here. Your mainstream fake news media want you to believe that your president is some sort of unhinged maniac who ambushes foreign leaders in the Oval Office for no better reason than because he's an authoritarian oligarch autocrat or something. I don't know what any of those words mean, but I know they're bad, and that's all that matters. No, of course it's not true. If you don't insult President Trump's intelligence, and by extension, the intelligence of the American people, if you don't look President Trump right in the eye and make representations that the both of you know to be false, then President Trump will be happy to treat you with all of the pomp and circumstance and dignity and courtesy that your station befits. But if you do lie to us, if you do insult our intelligence, if you do make representations that are demonstrably false in full view of the world press, and you think you can just smile and grin for a few minutes and get away with it scot-free, well, in case you hadn't heard, there's been a change in management recently. We have swapped out the semi-animated cadaver, the guy who looks like a half-melted wax mannequin, and we have replaced him with a real man and a real leader, who doesn't look kindly on you sitting there in our executive mansion insulting our people's intelligence. In fact, he doesn't like that one little bit. So if you do come here and you do try to play us like that, well, our president will bring the receipts on your ass, and he will make you sit there squirming uncomfortably until he is damn good and finished reading them all out, each and every one. And he may dim the lights and play a video that exposes the bald-faced lies that you just tried to tell approximately 30 seconds ago. I'm just saying, President Ramaphosa, may I call you Cyril? I find it difficult to believe you came here thinking you could deal with President Trump in the same way that you used to deal with the corpse of Joe Biden. I find it difficult to believe you came here thinking you could hand-wave away the human rights abuses of your own regime by just flatly denying that any of it was really real. But you know what I think your fatal mistake was? I think you came here thinking that because you had the support of our corporate fake news media, that they would just smooth the whole thing over and make you look good, and that would be all that mattered. You didn't expect to have any receipts thrown in your face, and I think perhaps most crucially of all, you don't have any appreciation of the extent to which our fake news media have long since lost their ability to shape public opinion in any meaningful way. I think you imagine that things are the same way in America that they are in your area of the world, that most people believe the regime media, even when the regime media stand in opposition to the current president. I mean, after all, we've seen numerous cases of corrupt regime media bringing down duly elected chief executives in the last half century. We had Richard Nixon here in the United States, Vicente Fox in Mexico, Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, Imran Khan in Pakistan. The only scalp those forces have failed to take, having tried their very, very best, despite having tried harder for longer than they ever tried to do a thing before, is the scalp of President Donald Trump. Though they did manage to shoot off a little bit of his ear, so I guess that's something. And maybe President Ramaphosa just hasn't gotten the memo yet that the old world has come and gone and he is living in an altogether different one now. A world where you can't just smile awkwardly and make some half-hearted assurances and have everything go on just as it went on before. A world where if you're going into a meeting with the US president, you can expect him to bring the receipts and not be bashful about waving them around. A world where if you're engaged in human rights abuses, you will find no shelter in institutional norms or diplomatic protocol. You will be called out on it publicly, as well you ought to be. It is called the bully pulpit. Our president understands what it is and how to use it, and if you stand in opposition to the cause of peace and justice in the world, he will not hesitate to use it on you. So what you gonna do when Trump-a-magamania runs wild on you, brother dude Jack? Dateline Washington. Once again, Thursday, 22 May. I know it's one of those Washington-centric roundup weeks again, but I promise we're going to go on a trip to Germany before it ends. So rest assured on that. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, testifying before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee this week, brought the scope of the USAID fraud and graft and money laundering machine into full relief when he lamented the fact that, and pay close attention to this part, 12 cents of every dollar paid out by Congress through the State Department under the auspices of USAID, an average of 12 freaking cents, was getting to actual ground level foreign aid. In other words, each time in the last half century or more when your members of Congress stood and patted themselves on the back for spending $1 million or $5 billion or $10 billion helping the sick and the hungry, whoever's in the war-torn wherever, well, that $1 billion was really about $5 when you get right down to it, after all the criminals and the corrupt government officials got paid. So if they're standing on the steps of Congress announcing the $1 billion aid package they just passed, well, by the time it gets from Washington to Rwanda or wherever, after everybody in the Biden and Pelosi families has taken their cut, there's enough left over to buy one guy one pack of smokes. There you go, sir. Please smoke these in good health. Compliments of the U.S. taxpayer. You're welcome. And if you haven't watched this hearing, I do encourage you to go take a look at it because Secretary Rubio is really hitting it out of the park lately. He was viewed for a long time when he was in the Senate, and not incorrectly, as sort of an establishment fence-sitter, if you will, but it seems like he's had a real sort of come-to-Jesus moment since he took on his current post and got a good look below decks into the proverbial engine room of the State Department, and he seems to have been genuinely shocked by the extent of the corruption and abuse and mismanagement that he has found down there. And for the senators in the committee room, it shouldn't make a difference, but it does. Hearing these things coming from one of their own former colleagues, and especially a former colleague who's never really been seen before as a partisan bomb thrower, it means more than it does if they were hearing it from somebody else. And you don't hear nearly the same level of animus and hostility from the other side of the aisle as you normally would hear if it wasn't a former member of their own fraternity. There were not many attempts from the Democrat side, at least not that I heard, to argue that everything was totally cool with USAID and we should go back to restoring all of the funding because Trump just wants to starve hungry children or whatever. There were a couple such attempts, but they were half-hearted at best, really. And ultimately, isn't it a great opportunity to get people to unwittingly expose themselves for what they really are and the extent of the corruption in which they've involved themselves? Because we have wondered for a long time, many of us, How is it that so many people enter Congress with no money or assets of which to speak, and when they leave 6 or 8 or 10 years later, they have managed to accrue quite considerable fortunes, despite having only a modest salary in the low six figures? The point being, when the news comes out that 88 cents of every foreign aid dollar was being spent fraudulently, take down the names of the members of Congress who complain the loudest and are the most eager to see things go back to the way they were. Because those people have probably just unwittingly incriminated themselves, is all I'm saying. Dateline Deutschland, Friday, 23 May. Well, here we are back in Germany again, where there were 2 Islamic terror attacks at German train stations this week. One of them in Bielefeld, in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, and the second one at the Hamburg Hauptbahnhof on Friday evening. Yes, I said Hamburg Hauptbahnhof, and I can say it 10 times in a row if you need me to, but don't tempt me. But more importantly than all that, thank the good Lord I live in the United States of America, where we have our glorious First Amendment, and not in Germany, where, if I described these 2 attacks as Islamic terrorism, which they self-evidently are, which seems not unreasonable when the knife-wielding assailant pulls out a weapon and starts stabbing a bunch of people while screaming Allahu Akbar, I would probably serve more prison time than the actual terrorist would. Well, yes, ma'am, we are very sorry that your daughter got murdered by a crazed jihadi, but I'm afraid that our officers are all quite busy chasing down Islamophobic social media posts at the moment. But your call is very important to us. Our next available operator is going to take real good care of you. Now, is it weird that I find one of these attacks more horrifying than the other one, given the fact that they both involve senseless violence and the loss of innocent people's lives? Well, that's not really my judgment to make, but the Friday mass murder, it bothers me more than the previous Sunday mass murder did, and I'll tell you why. Because the Hamburg alleged attacker, is a female. A female who inflicted wounds on a dozen people, 4 of whom are said to be in critical condition and still in mortal danger in the hospital. And as ridiculous as it is that any assailant with an edged weapon should be able to wound that many victims before being subdued, isn't it all the more ridiculous? And isn't it, in fact, very deeply shameful that a female attacker armed only with a knife should be able to extract that kind of a butcher's bill on a train platform in Hamburg, Germany? Because it raises a couple of fairly uncomfortable questions, I think, doesn't it? First of all, where the hell were the cops? A busy urban train station during the evening rush hour in a major European city, and the police presence is either non-existent enough or disinterested enough that it takes them, several minutes to do anything, to intercede? Or maybe were the cops on duty all noodle-armed 94-pound females who scurried away and cowered in fear for their lives at the first sign of armed conflict? Don't know, can't say. And even if we grant all of those things, shameful as they are, hell, even if we pretend that the Hamburg police do not exist and there's no security personnel of any kind on duty on the whole train platform, the question still hangs uncomfortably in the air. Where were the German men? Didn't Germany used to be a country that prided itself on a certain sort of masculinity? Didn't Germany used to be a place where you were seen as a total pussy if you graduated from college and didn't have at least one dueling scar on each cheek? But a female Muslim attacker with a knife marauds through a Hamburg train terminal and has time to wound over a dozen victims, several of them potentially fatally. And how many German men failed to intercede who could have easily physically subdued the attacker? Worse yet, how many German men stood there and pulled out their little phones and started shooting video footage instead of interceding and subduing the attacker and potentially saving the lives of the innocent? Is that what the state of German manhood actually looks like now? Because I sure as shit can't picture a thing like that happening in any goddamn American train station. I'm not saying American masculinity is in any sort of healthy state, because it totally isn't, but I still can't picture a couple dozen American men standing there like impotent pussies while a female Muslim attacker runs around stabbing a whole bunch of people. So fucking shake yourself, Germany, is all I'm saying. Stop acting like a bunch of gutless yellow turds, because it's fucking embarrassing. I hope this little talk has helped. And goddammit, that's the end of the roundup. But I feel like I could talk for another 67 minutes straight about what a bunch of pussified douchebags the Germans are, but I guess we'll have to table the matter until next week. Have no fear. I am sure the Germans will find their way back into the roundup 7 days from now, because they always do, and those matters having been dealt with, I am going to hand you fine people off to my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, a man of such ravenous appetite. The waitress hands him the menu and he says, yeah, okay, that should do. The one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
I'm checking for Nancy Mace's OnlyFans. Anybody know what it looks like? I'm asking for a friend.
Hey, don't tempt her. She'll do it.
She'll do it. That's what I'm hoping. Welcome to the Blast Radius, ladies and gentlemen. We got us a couple of different little stories here tonight. I have an alleged AOC campaign video. We'll see how good it is, how bad it is, or whether or not we buy it. Then we also have the president of our United States and yours. I'm glitching. Why am I glitching? Oh, now I'm fine.
You look fine from here.
Okay, it looks like I'm glitching on mine, but and he just absolutely plays the chat on this whole thing because he lets homie completely walk himself down the garden path and completely bomb himself, and it's like, okay, explain this. I love it. You love it. We know everyone loves it. Even the people who hate him love it. And by the way, we're talking about an individual who was pretty much smeared by every single 3-letter agency on earth, investigated to the nth degree, and nothing stuck to him. And that's why they call him the Teflon Don. I don't like him. I don't care. How you doing, bud?
Yeah, whether you like him or not is so far down the list of relevant questions at this point.
Doesn't even matter. Go through chat.
Would I want to spend a weekend going on a camping trip with the guy? Probably not. Do I want him to be my president? You bet your sweet ass I do.
We got Scotty's Dragon coming in for the gold. Casey May gets the silver. And Grim Ben gets the bronze. Welcome in, folks. Appreciate y'all coming through.
Scotty Waddle's always with the gold.
I would be worried.
Or Scotty's Dragon, as the case may be.
Sure, one of the Scotties. Right, we got El Perro in the chat. Queen Bird, good to see you. Appreciate you coming through. 5/5.
Hello, Queen.
We got Plumpy and Fiona Ross. Good to see both of y'all.
Indeed.
All right, so she dropped a good one. USAID is an unofficial branch of the CIA, which it's what allows the U.S. to finance good relations to compete against Chinese interests. I'm just
because when you consider the sheer numbers involved, it would almost be impossible that some of it wasn't going to nefarious black book CIA operations. Wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would be very surprised if a significant portion of it wasn't. See, I'm one of those people. You have to make an assumption.
88 cents of every dollar, my friend.
You have to make an assumption. Either we have the worst intel agencies on earth, or there are actually 5 active cartels on our border.
Yes.
One or the other has to be true. So I don't believe we actually have 5 active cartels. I think we have the appearance of 5 active cartels and a handful of CIA ops. That's my guess.
Well, yes, and following on from that, we have to then ask the question: how much of the cartel activity is being propped up by taxpayer subsidized NGOs that are only now just getting shut down through the shutting down of the USAID fraud machine?
Sure.
We've all seen it happening. These migrant-focused NGOs just going out of business, shutting down operations one after the other. You know, does anybody actually think those two events are unrelated? Because that would be a pretty damn big leap of faith to say that.
Most Hated Growers joined the chat. Good to see you, bud. And we've got
good to see everybody. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Absolutely happy Memorial Day weekend. It is that weekend. You know what I love about Memorial Day?
What's that?
The cuts of meat are better.
It's true.
They just
and
are.
meat just tastes better on Memorial Day as a general principle.
My first channel idea was Meat and Fire. That was going to be the name of it. And it was going to be slow motion, high graphic shots of building a fire and cooking some meat on it. I thought that might work. Turns out that's a lot of freaking work, bro. And the camera angles and everything. And I'm in Georgia, so everything fogs up. It was a nightmare to try to do that. So
you could call it conversion therapy for vegans.
What's funny is there's a handful of channels out there doing that now. So our president, your president and mine, is an absolute fucking Chad. Watch this.
I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But Mr. President, I must say that we have we have thousands of stories talking about it,
Sure.
and we have documentaries, we have news stories, and that is Natalie here? Somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and I have to. It has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
We have. Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
Nothing this parliament can do, with or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land.
Yeah.
South African occupy land. That's who we are. Whatever we want to do, I can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament. Yes, honorable member. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill. No matter.
All right. So if you happen to be sitting in the Oval Office and all the lights go out, you're fucked.
And yeah, I love that it was Trump who was holding the actual light dimmer. Did you see that? That was freaking awesome.
I missed that. Oh, it's beautiful. Ooh, I love trolls. God, I love
Oh,
trolls.
I know. Oh,
it's so great. Oh,
You
we
want a
got some
job
more-
done right, do it your damn self.
Damn right. We got P Fletch 83 in the chat. Welcome in. Good to see you. Aussie Manda has joined. That's cool.
And the piece of video that he's playing obviously is the guy who is the leader of the main opposition party in South Africa, who is in a stadium that's full of 20 or 30,000 people, and he's chanting, "Kill the farmer, shoot the boer, shoot to kill," you know. Liquidate all the white people, in other words. And this is exactly the sort of thing that President Ramaphosa was just trying to tell President Trump, oh, that's not happening. You're just imagining all that. So this is what it looks like when President Trump brings the receipts on a motherfucker.
Well, what he said is you'll learn what's going on in South Africa when these three men here tell you what's going on in South Africa, and they can have that conversation. And instead, Trump played the video. Welcome to the age of YouTube, motherfucker.
Yes, and then after that, we get the president trying to save face by saying, "Oh, well, this guy's not in government, so that's not a government position." And then Trump quite correctly says, "Well, he's filling a frickin' stadium full of people who are chanting these slogans along with him, so that doesn't reassure me very much, Mr. President."
Yeah, I'm not real sanguine with this idea.
Yes.
Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Pa, 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 pa. Poor, the farmer.
All right. I want you to pay special attention to homie right freaking here. Y'all see that guy? This is not this dude here. This is his opposition. This is the guy actually in power. This is the guy that's running to depose him.
Right.
Okay. So this guy is trying to say that this isn't happening.
Yes.
And look at the look on, I mean, just watch his body language while this plays, because he knows he's going to lose this election.
PE in the white man. So these people, when you want to heal them up, they feel a pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Suli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness. So, okay, Yamasa, the people, the papa, the people, the papa.
So I'd like to ask you a question. Where does the food on your table come from?
The grocery store. Ha!
And where do they get their food? From farmers, right?
Yes.
This appears to me to be a depopulation method that's going to play out in about 2 years.
Well, there.
Remember, you're the carbon they want to reduce. So congratulations.
And it's remarkable, I think, watching people just repeat the exact same mistakes that have failed down through history over and over and over and over again. Because I'm going to tell you right now, every scheme that ever sought to redistribute land from the ownership class to the worker class, it's only ever had one result, and the result is famine and human despair. That's the only result that land redistribution schemes ever have. And here we see South Africa going back down that same old road. And for those of us who are old enough to remember having been alive in 1990, it is quite lamentable indeed how far away we are from Nelson Mandela at this point.
Rhodesia. Do we remember Rhodesia? I would run a gambit to say that most people do not remember Rhodesia, but Rhodesia performed this exact same magic trick where they waved a wand, redistributed the land, and killed millions of people in the matter of like a few years.
Less than a decade, and that really takes some doing, and they pulled it off. They used to be the breadbasket of Africa, and now they can't feed their own people.
Right, and it's because misappropriation of lands leads to misuse of land, and misuse of land leads to degradation of land.
And you had people already on the land who were loyal citizens of your country who had been on the land for generations and generations and just wanted to keep being responsible stewards of the land. But you couldn't allow that, could you? You had to make a famine instead.
You could have just had a chicken, you know?
Yeah, you had to make a sacrifice to the race pandering gods.
Oh, that's the ones. Yeah, I tried to make a sacrifice to them, and they didn't like it. I don't know. I don't think it worked out for me. But you can't deny it now, right?
I don't see any way that you can. I mean, he was happy to lie about it before when he hadn't had the video thrown in his face.
Oh, I forgot to do the right buttons. Don't you hate it when that happens? I'm over here trying to talk to people in chat. Hello, avoided hornet. I'll just say it instead. That'll make everything work much better.
It will.
Essentially, homie over here is just kind of trying to ignore.
I know. I've been watching Homie over there,
and Trump's making a point of watching every single frame and checking where Secret Service is at occasionally.
And I want to throw something out right now. Isn't there a larger, more overarching question that needs to be grappled with in many parts of the world, including our own? And it's a question that underpins the entire race pandering industry, and I would submit contributes much to the phenomenon of black fatigue. And the question is, how long do a people have to be in a place before they are no longer colonizers?
Tactical nuke incoming!
Was
I
that on
like that.
purpose?
I did that on purpose. I heard.
Now I
one
forgot what I
title.
was in the middle of saying.
I'm sorry. Maybe I should make that a little shorter. Wait. So, how do you respond to this if you're this guy, right? Because that's where we're at now.
He really has no option except to go the route that he does go, which is to say, well, that guy doesn't currently occupy a government position, so he's just an opposition agitator, so he's not expressing anything that actually comports with government policy, even though that's a lie. I can't think of any other possible thing he could do after having this stuff thrown in his face in this manner.
Well, the intro quote kind of says it all.
It really does, yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's the whole story in a nutshell. You don't really need a whole lot more. Let's listen to what he has to say about it there.
It's in South Africa.
We need to find out. Oops. Okay.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One,
What
perhaps
are you
even.
talking about?
The Pentagon-
What does this have to do with the Qatar jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are
Yes,
really-
yes. I was just going to say the exact same thing. The first thing the news media do is they try to change the subject.
Yep. And do you see the smile homie fucking drops?
Yep. He knows who his wingmen are.
Yeah, he literally actively scoffed when he got asked about the jet.
For you to go into the subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing. They also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet.
I think he let them get him off topic.
On NBC because Brian
What's up,
Roberts,
NH
the
Mountain
people
Girl?
that run
Welcome
that
in,
place,
girl.
They ought to be.
He's going to bring him back around, though.
You run that network, and you're a disgrace. No more questions.
And you're a disgrace.
This is Peter's up. He's a terrible.
If they're committing genocide, why? Sure, that's my question.
God, I love Trump.
In South Africa. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you very
hosting
much.
us. What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation
I
we've
don't
just
know.
seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days.
We need less killing of the whites. There's too much killing of the whites. We need less killing of the whites. The killing of the whites is very bad.
I could make the argument that we need less killing of everyone.
Anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws, and this is all. I'll give these to you. So when you say what would I like to do, I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couple say that they were attacked violently. Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried.
President Trump.
He asks about a jet that was given.
My first question
You are so bad. You're such a bad reporter.
All right, hold on. If anybody out there works with AI, I would like you to take this scene of Trump fielding questions with the reporters actively live and compare it to what would have happened had Biden been there.
Man, Trump 2.0 gives exactly 0 fucks, and I am here for it, and I love it so much.
That's brilliant. JD's over here with his freaking I smell a fart face.
No, this family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
President Trump, could you-
Well, I think the videos are so. No. When you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what and I have other friends in South Africa. I have people that left. One in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land. They take your land and they kill you. It's okay, and they say it's okay to do. Now we're going to talk about it, but this is a tremendous. Look, this is a story recent. These are all people that recently got killed, and I don't know how it can get any worse. These are.
President Trump.
And the men that you saw, the people that you saw, those are officials. Those are people that were in office. They had one march, they had a dance in your parliament, whatever you may call it, legislature.
Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that. course, what you saw, the speeches that were being made. One, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies. And in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
And then
take
when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill
Only the state may take the land. The individuals who do the killing are just, political dissidents. They're nefarious ne'er-do-wells. They're useful idiots, but it is the state that comes in and removes the land.
I'm trying to think back in my mind. When is the earliest socialist land redistribution scheme? Wouldn't it probably be in the Soviet Union in the late 19-teens and early 1920s? And we know that resulted in a famine that saw 20 odd million die, and every land redistribution scheme since then has been built on exactly the same rationale. It hasn't even evolved at all. It just says, well, let's throw out the ownership class and the managerial class, and we'll just turn all this stuff over to the workers. They know how to work it anyway. It'll be great, and we can just kill all the other people, and everybody will be exactly as mediocre as the other guy, and it'll be Fantasyland utopia.
When we were backstage, we were having a conversation, and I said, this is a byproduct of people believing people are cogs and not believing they are people. You
Correct.
can't cog people. People aren't cogs. When you try to cog a person, they resist the shape of that cog and will not function in the space you put them in.
Yeah, people really don't like it when you try to take away their humanity.
Welcome in, Jeffrey Jordan. Good to see you, bud. And H Mountain Girl, good to see you. What do you do in this situation? How do you rectify a entirely? It's the Maoist revolution all over again, but in South Africa.
Well, yeah, and I think there still is a perception in our country and in much of the West that South Africa is still kind of the happy, hopeful place it was in 1990 when apartheid ended and Mandela got out of jail and got elected president, and everybody's happy and smiling and reconciling, and there's been a long and very dark downward spiral since then that I think a lot of people would rather not talk about. And that's the thing that President Trump right here in this room that we're watching is making us confront and making them confront, and more power to him for doing it.
Absolutely. And it's something that the world has turned a blind eye to for the past 20 years that has only been snowballing into like modern proportions.
kill a farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
Nothing happens.
there is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately, through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
The farmers are black. The farmers are not black.
We have
I don't say
now-
that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently. And, you know, I mean, we're here to talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here. But I will say this, that if the news wasn't fake, like NBC, which is fake news, totally, one of the worst, ABC, NBC, CBS.
Take another shot, bro.
Take another. Turn the other cheek, bastards.
They'd be covering it, but the fake news in this country doesn't talk about that. They don't want to talk about it, but now they have to talk about it, but they won't. This won't even be a subject. They'll have him talking about why did a country give a free, think of this, why did a country give an airplane to the United States Air Force? Okay, the United States, not to me, to the United States Air Force, so they could help us out because we need an Air Force One until our such Air Force One is being built, 2 of them being built. But Boeing's a little bit late, unfortunately. So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force? That's what that idiot talks about after viewing a thing where thousands of people are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give.
I wish.
That's what that idiot talks about.
All right. So I suspect there may be a cultural element here where he thinks he is being browbeaten for not having enough wealth to buy off the president of the United States. I think that's what he's hearing. Because look at his face. He is as contrite as he could possibly be. I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you, bro.
And it's like I just said, Trump 2.0 gives zero fucks about anybody.
If your country offered the United States Air Force a plan, I would take it.
Okay. But coming back to this issue, which I really would like us to talk about, talk about it.
Oh, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Nelson Mandela, that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around the table and talk about it.
Well, there are
And this is precisely what we would also like to talk about, including, of course, trade matters, investment matters. So the issues that concern you as the United States.
Those are all recent. Those are all debts.
Yeah, in many ways, I mean, one should say you are a partner of South Africa, and you're raising concerns, and these are concerns that we are willing to talk to you about. Let me just add quickly, the criminality that we're experiencing in our country needs quite a lot of technological capability. And in one of our areas in South Africa, we're using US technology, which is able to, in many ways, identify where shootings are happening and all that. And I'd like to talk
Yeah, have you ever seen that system?
that we can.
All right. I know this is completely off topic, but I just nerded out for a second. You're going to have to deal with it. All right. So
That's fine.
I think it was MIT, but I'm not certain. Could have been DARPA, but they wanted to test it in like a few U.S. cities. It was determined that it was a little too invasive because of reasons or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, it was actually deployed in, I think, Johannesburg, although it might have been one of the other South African cities, but it was deployed to South Africa. And it utilizes like ultrasonic frequencies from gunfire to determine location and direction of bullet travel. It actually hears the bullet flying through the air and knows where the bullet is at and can tell you where the individual was that shot the bullet when it fired. How many bullets
Sounds like
were
a pretty
fired?
tactically useful thing.
Exactly. And it was deployed in a city in South Africa and supposedly has been used to like fast track responses. So within seconds of a bullet firing, a code goes out over the radio and all of the officers in the area can just close on that area rather than having it going through radios and stuff. You're not calling in. There was shots fired on 3rd Street. They know where the shots were fired within 2 or 3 feet. What is up, Namaste the fuck away? What is up, bro? Phoenix Crystal Phoenix Rising. Good to see you. Did I miss anybody in your chat? Grim Ben?
I don't believe so. But the one thing I find regrettable about this footage that we're watching is everybody's still kind of dancing around the central question that we're not talking about, which is, and we should talk about it, which is how did we get from the happy, hopeful, new dawn post-apartheid South Africa of 1990 to the dystopian hellscape that we see before us today with white farmers being expropriated forcibly without compensation and having to flee as refugees to the United States? Because isn't that something that Warren's talking about, how we get from that point A to that point B? And couldn't we argue pretty freaking compellingly that the way we get from that point A to point B is by starting to go down the road of racial quotas, even a little bit? Because when you go down the road of racial quotas, don't you always wind up in a place that you would rather not be in?
Well, I just kind of do everything that Charlie Manson didn't want us to do. As long as we're not living in a world where Charlie Manson was right, I think I can get along pretty well.
Because what was the main problem you had if you were the South African government in 1990? You had a bunch of institutions, but the only people who knew how to run them were the people from the former white ruling class. So obviously there is some kind of a need. I don't want to say that racial quotas would have been unavoidable, but maybe they were unavoidable in a situation like that, because you don't you can't keep going on forever with white people being the only people who know how to run the shit. You have to teach the other people how to run the shit, don't you, at some point, the people who are the majority of the population? But how do you go about implementing a thing like that without starting yourself down the slippery slope of all the bad places that racial quotas eventually lead to? And I don't know what the answer is.
Don't is the answer. And the problem I have with it is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And if you overextend your action, the reaction becomes equally overextended. And I'm afraid that world politics has shifted so far left that the shift right is going to be calamitous.
Yeah, and it's going to wind up being far beyond anything that the average person on the right actually wants. But that is what you get when you play games with the Overton window.
Exactly. When you engage in social engineering, you have the laws of unintended consequences. Something about that statement about the cogs and people being people and not cogs, this is all saying the same thing.
You're taking people's land away from them. And those people, in many cases, are being executed. They're being executed. And they happen to be white, and most of them happen to be farmers. And that's a tough situation. I don't know how you explain that. How do you explain that? They're taking people's land away, and in many cases, those people are being executed. And in many cases, it's not the government that's doing it. It's people that kill them and then take their land, and nothing happens to them. But we have thousands of people that want to come into our country. They're also going to Australia in a smaller number. But we have thousands of people that want to come into our country, and they're white farmers, and they feel that they're going to die in South Africa. And it's a bad thing. Yeah.
What did South Africa do? What concessions would you like to see them make to improve relations with the United States? Then I went more for President Ramaphosa afterwards.
Well, we just spoke about, I got them a very, very complex machine, 150 of them. And I was asked by the president if it could help, and I did that. And, I have great feeling for all countries. I deal with all countries. But I have a great feeling for South Africa because I have friends. I have a couple of friends, a few friends here today. But I have many friends from South Africa. But many of those friends are not, they can't go back. I have Elon is from South Africa. I don't want to get Elon involved. That's all I have to do, get him into another thing. But Elon happens to be
Elon is from South Africa.
Well, that's all I got to do is get him involved in some more shit.
But you know what thought just occurred to me as we were watching that? Just in the amount of footage that we've watched since we started this thing at the beginning, I think Trump has spoken more words than Joe Biden spoke in public in the entire first 6 months of his presidency.
This is something I've been saying about Trump since the very beginning. Everybody's worried about what Trump's thinking, what Trump's saying, what Trump's got going on. If they just unblock his fucking Twitter, he'd tell you. He'd just straight tell you exactly what he's thinking and what he's going to do. And you don't have to wonder about that shit at all. But instead, they silence the goose so you can't hear the honk.
Right, and that's always been the most hilarious part about the allegation that he traffics in dog whistles to racists. Like, the man's central defining character trait is that he always says what's on his mind, but he's going to start sending out coded messages about being a racist. You're really going with that. I mean, really right now? Fake news media, you're really doing that? But they are. All right. Because they can't help themselves.
The next bit that I brought before the panel, as it were, is AI generated. This is not real, people. So don't get your pacemaker into an uproar.
It's not real, but it's absolutely fantastic.
It might become real, but I don't know how she'd be able to run for president given that her platform's already been exposed by AI.
I mean, if she did run for president, it would sound pretty much exactly like this. I think we can rest assured in that
AOC.
Today, I, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, am announcing my candidacy for president of the United States of America. A lot of people say that I'm not patriotic. But my IQ is 76, and all forefathers signed the Constitution in 1976. You don't get more.
Oh, wow. Okay.
More patriotic than that. A lot of people think I'm fake, that I'm phony, that I'm inauthentic.
What up, Desert Gate?
But you know what I say to that? Being fake is a good thing. It isn't 1952 anymore. It doesn't matter if we're technically correct. What matters is that we're morally right.
I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
It's better if people think you care when you don't than think you don't when you do.
I love it, dude. I love it. Whoever did this, man. This is
I know, but she is one of those people in our political ecosphere who is so absurd she has rendered herself meme proof. You can do an AI generated absurdity of her that is completely indistinguishable from the real her because that's how absurd she is.
Oh,
and how is a culture supposed to grapple with a thing like that? I don't know.
We elect a president. I mean, we're living idiocracy, bro. You know,
I cannot believe this person is in Congress. I can't believe our girl LaMonica, the forearm shiver queen, is in Congress. I can't believe half the people who are in Congress are in Congress.
I mean, we also elect wrestlers and actors all the time.
Being a great president is about perception. It's not about doing great things. It's about making people think you're doing great things. Remember that time I got fake arrested and put my hands behind my back to pretend that I was handcuffed?
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pretending that she was handcuffed, all for show, before pumping her fist to a crowd of cheering supporters. She's putting her hands behind her back as if she's handcuffed. There were no handcuffs to be seen.
These are the kind of theatrics that I will bring to the White House. I don't really care about immigrants, but people think I do, and that's good. Donald Trump, on the other hand, he isn't really...
I don't care about immigrants, but people think I do.
I don't really care about immigrants, but I do cry over empty parking lots, and that's what really matters.
Yes, the photo op.
Racist, but everybody thinks he is. That's bad. The trick is to speak with confidence, even when you have no idea what you're talking about.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that? I think what I meant is like the settlements that are.
I think we should have like edited in the Jeopardy thing there.
Just look at that. Look at that sheer terror in her eyes that somebody actually asked her a follow-up question.
No, sir.
You're not supposed to ask me follow-up questions. I'm not a real politician. What the fuck are we doing here? This isn't that kind of interview. God damn it. I think it was just like the Jewy kind of things that I didn't like so much, because the Israelis, they always do kind of like Jewy stuff, and Jewy stuff isn't like cool like other stuff is. If they would just do less Jewy stuff, I mean, that would be awesome.
Oops, I'm not bad. My dog's really big and knocks over all my fans for fun, apparently.
Are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes. I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
People think I'm stupid.
See, she just got completely exposed right there.
Yeah.
She tried to get out of it by just throwing out, muscle memory catchphrases, and then she realized, oh God, I really sound like an idiot here, don't I? And then she had to go to I'm not an expert on geopolitics. Okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah, I kind of
just in Congress.
We need congressional term limits. I think if we had congressional term limits, we would have a better arrangement of grift, graft, and corruption.
I don't see any good argument for why only the president and the vice president should be term limited and nobody else.
Right? I don't get it. I mean, because throughout our childhood, right, we had cadavers for most of our lives in Congress. Like, most of these people were over the age of 60, and the average American is what, 52, 45?
Sounds about right.
So, yeah, it doesn't really make a whole bunch of sense. I can get for the wisdom of older men and older women, but there's a limit where it turns into a dimensional riddled, addled corpse. And we need to get them out before that point.
Well, yeah, that's why you don't want them in the actual high pressure decision making posts. You want them in the advisory posts. You know, the Asians understand this stuff so much better than we do. You know, they've got the guys in their 60s who are actually doing the stuff and making the decisions, and then they've got the bullpen of 80 and 90-year-old guys who have got all the experience and all the wisdom that they can rely on when they need it. And that's the way you should run things.
And the old guys just sit around and play mahjong until a question needs answered. And they go, well, back in
exactly, and that is an ideal life to be living when you're in your 90s.
The three chambers of government are the presidential, the House, and the Senate.
To make sure that we take back all three chambers of Congress, all three chambers of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House.
So look, yeah, I pretend to be dumb. Being a flirtatious bimbo has gotten me pretty far in life. But
all three chambers of government.
I'm going to let that one just soak in for a second.
There's the one and the other one and the third one. Come on, guys! Everybody knows this. It's like when Joe Biden tried to recall the Declaration of Independence. Come on, you know the thing.
Come on, man.
Truth is that I'm a lot savvier than you think. My boyfriend bought me a puzzle for my birthday last year. It said 4 years plus. But you know what? I finished it in just 6 months. So don't let them.
That might be my favorite thing in that video.
That is just mean, bro. That was completely unnecessary, but I love it.
I love it so much.
Everything a man can do. I mean, ladies, men aren't really that clever anyway, am I right? My boyfriend doesn't even pay attention when he makes orange juice. I'm like, babe, it says it right there on the label. Concentrate. I mean, and if I'm so dumb, why are people still voting for me? I am a communist.
There you go. That's her platform.
It says it right there on the label. You have to concentrate.
Absolutely.
Communist. That's crazy. I mean, you know what communism is, right? We take everything from everybody so that everybody is poor except us. It's about redistributing wealth to me. Bernie basically said it the other day on TV.
Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years.
Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting? 30,000 people are waiting at.
What do you think I'm going to do? Wait in line at the United terminal with everybody with all the fucking unwashed masses? What the fuck do I look like right now? I ain't gonna do that shit.
We have the tiniest squish in here. I'm going to give that a participation trophy because it deserves it. Hey, Squishy.
My name's Bernie Sanders, and the more crazy things I do with my hands, it means the more sense I am making.
That's actually really good.
Well, you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
See, Bernie said it openly, and you guys still vote for us. We'll keep flying on our private jets, shooting a Brazilian gallons of CO2 into the atmosphere, while you guys all drive your government-mandated Nissan Leaf and eat your government-mandated bug protein. Like, why would anyone vote for that? But you do, because we do genius-level propaganda.
Go eat your bug salad sandwiches, you saps.
Right?
We're basically geniuses. So when you vote for AOC, you're voting for like a genius. And just remember, we are morally right. So we never have to actually be factually correct. I'll see you guys on the campaign trail. Thank you so much, Los Angeles.
So
being
where we're at.
factually correct is overrated. You just have to say things that make people feel good, and then they vote for you.
Yes. Or you can say things that make them feel scared and that you
Yes.
might be able to fix it. Sell them a problem and that you're the solution, and they'll vote for you every time. Everyone in the desert always votes for more water.
The bad orange man is waging an assault on the rule of law, and we have to stop him right now, guys.
Right? If we don't do it, we might end up with a government that serves its purpose.
If you texted me just $5 right now to such and such text number, then you could be the one that helped me defeat that bad orange man. You want to help me defeat the bad orange man, don't you? Just $5.
I'll wrestle him or something. We get him in a mud pit. I wonder how much. I wonder what it would take to get Trump into a mud pit to wrestle somebody. I bet it would depend on who it was more than anything else.
He clotheslined Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 21. Was that WrestleMania 21?
I think so. Do you reckon
I'm gonna find that. You entertain the people. I'm gonna find that video.
Do you reckon he could take 5 midgets in a mud wrestling competition?
10 midgets.
10? Do you think he could take all 10?
Yes.
The most amazing part of that would be when he stepped out of the mud pit, flicked his collar, and all of the mud just sloughed off of him because he's made of Teflon. That would be the most impressive part of it. Well, okay, I think it's about time for a rant. What do you think?
All right, I got the video. I'm gonna drop it in there.
Okay. Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. I watched Andor's second season. First season wasn't great. There's a whole bunch of really like weird, silly. It just wasn't great. The wrong things were in focus. The wrong things were brought to the forefront, and it was all about like identities and who people were and the power of friendship, and we'll get this through this together and yada yada. Second season, whole nother ballgame. They come in at the beginning of the second season with a significant problem. The Empire wants some minerals that's on a planet. The planet doesn't actually exploit those minerals. It's deemed gauche to dig in the ground, and so they don't do that. They sell high-end silks and fabrics. And so a propaganda campaign begins in the Empire to make these people all appear to be dissidents and ne'er-do-wells, whereas a separate propaganda campaign by the resistance begins on the planet to try to prove that the Empire is doing their propaganda campaign. And it basically goes to prove throughout the eight episodes, I think, that all propaganda is equally bad regardless of its purpose. Because if you need propaganda to convince someone, then you are lying to them. The truth does not need propaganda. And ultimately, the truth is actually what sets off the things that everybody's trying to make happen. Because the rebellion the resistance is essentially trying to get the locals to act out and stop the things that are happening that the Empire is doing. The Empire is trying to get the locals to trigger off into a violent rebellion so as to be able to prove they need to like come down with an iron fist. And it's a huge political intrigue that's well done from the perspective of people who are actually in the trenches making the decisions and basically offering up their personal wealth for this future rebellion.
So what you're saying here is Disney Star Wars made something that doesn't suck?
If you go there looking for the usual Star Wars fare of a whole bunch of friendly people being friendly and dancing with lightsabers and rave sticks, then it's not exactly what you're looking for. It's much more like a espionage thriller that has been painted in Star Wars colors.
Yeah, I watched the first season, and I don't think it really even left all that much of an impression on me. I don't. I don't feel like I loved it. I don't think like I hated it. It was just a show that I watched.
Right. Well, that was the biggest complaint, was that the only people who liked the show were the people who were into the mushy love story / identity politics of everybody can just get along and be friendly type thing. And that was
I also thought, as I still think, that it's kind of weird building a story and a series around a character whom we've seen die already. But
okay,
don't let
so
that stop you, I guess.
I don't have as much of an issue with that, and I'll explain why. So I watched halfway through the first season, saw this scene where a bunch of troopers were walking along pointing their barrels at each other, and I just lost all hope in Disney entirely and went and hid in my room and played video games shooting people. But somebody told me, it was like, hey, you really need to check out second season of Andor, and I was like, and so a few days later, a totally different person from a totally different quarter was like, you really need to check out the second season of Andor. And this time I was like, dude, are you serious? And they're like, no, you just check it out. I'm like, why? And they're like, no, I'm not going to tell you. And that's when I knew there was something to it. And I watched through it twice. I picked up I went back an episode or two on what I'd already seen and finished out the first season and then watched the second season all the way through. And it's the first time since the Mandalorian first season that I woke up one morning and ran into the freaking living room, got my coffee, got my freaking bag of Cheetos, and I sat down on the thing and turned on the TV and was already snarfling Cheetos before it even started playing, right?
Dude, if you watched through the whole thing
long.
twice, you should do a review video on that son of a bitch.
So there's a whole lot of really convoluted points in there that I'd like to do what do they call it? EFAP, every frame of picture, where you go through and like
every frame of pause.
Every frame of pause. That's it. Yeah. And that's about what you have to do to keep track of the political intrigues going on here, because there's this one dude who is like a quadruple coat, a triple, double, quadruple. He's James Bond, and he's ineffable and he's unflappable, and at the same time he is absolutely terrifying. I can't remember the guy's name that plays the role, but he is absolutely killer in it. Okay,
did you see the rumor? I think it was, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, that Disney is potentially seeking to divest itself of Star Wars so that they can try to save Marvel? Because I guess that's where we are now with Disney. They have to cut bait on one of their brands so they can try and save the other.
Yeah. Are you serious? Okay, we'll do it.
Yeah, just fantastic work, Disney. Just acquiring those brands and just beating them into the ground and making them completely toxic. You've done a fantastic yeoman's job just on all of that in the last, dozen years or so. How many brands can you actually ruin in a dozen years? I guess Disney has given us the answer. They've ruined Marvel and Star Wars, which pretty auspicious achievements, both of those, I would submit.
You could argue also the Indiana Jones franchise has been...
Oh, yeah. Good call. I forgot Indiana Jones.
That says a lot right there. Is this seriously fixing to happen?
Yes. The stipulation of the match is that whichever each wrestler is representing, Umaga is representing Vince McMahon, and the other guy is representing Trump. And whoever loses, the one billionaire gets to shave the other billionaire's head. And I'll give you one guess who wins.
Nice
move.
The hostile takeover. That was beautiful, bro. I thank you for showing me that. I had not had enough testosterone in my bloodstream, and now I do.
Oh, I know. I feel like I want to start talking like Hulk Hogan now, Brother Jack, dude.
Well, we could do like Hulk Hogan and Alex Jones. But I felt like that would be annoying.
I know you like that little Hulk Hogan hit I put in that video the other day.
That was good shit, bro.
Just a little bit of Real American does it every time. Bam, bam, bam,
really
bam,
dug. I really dug the roundup tonight. It tickled me at several points. Like, that's going to make excellent shorts, bro. That's going to be great.
Oh, that's nice of you to say. I appreciate that. Yeah, I felt like it was a bit long, but I did feel pretty good about it.
It was a little long, but it's fine. It was good. It was good shit. You had 20 people in here before the end of the roundup. And that's only happened once before, and that was like one of the nights where we landed on a Sunday where absolutely nothing was happening. There was nobody live and nothing going on, and we ended up with like 22 people in here before the end of the roundup.
Have you got another rant for us for the last 10 minutes?
Well, all right. So I was going to kind of skip over it. I kind of hoped you'd forgotten about it, but I went back and watched all of the Star Wars movies, like the entire franchise from beginning to end, and I found out that George Lucas is an idiot. He's a moron, and I can explain. So the original 3 movies were made with a very limited budget, very limited practical effects, and literally no digital effects whatsoever. And so all the effects were practical. When he went back and remastered the original 3 films, he ruined all of the gravitas of some of the scenes. Like, if you could have taken half of the slapstick bullshit that they added to the remastered movies out of it. And the worst part of it is, since they were coming off of the monetary high of having just released the prequels to do these remastered versions, they phoned it in. They just put a whole bunch of Larry Moe and Curly fucking jokes and a bunch of poop and fart jokes in the background and called it good. And
here's my position. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me please finish. Frankly, I believe we are being looked down upon by someone who believes they are superior in intellect to us, and it becomes ultimately obvious in the final 3 films whenever all of the slapsticky bullshit takes place right out in front of you on the face of the movie and is actually part of the fucking plot. Moron. That's what they're calling you. Stupid. You jingling fucking keys in front of you.
Right.
Sorry.
And as far as the special editions go, it's not the special editions existing per se that bothers me so much. I understand why he wanted to make them. He wanted to add some new fancy digital stuff and re-release the pictures in the theaters and make a few more bucks, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. But the thing you can't do, the thing that people do have a problem with, is that you made the previous original versions totally inaccessible and verboten and forced people to only consume the special editions. And that's the thing that people had a problem with, I think, where George Lucas diverged from the Star Wars fan community.
And I believe you're absolutely correct. But he alienated the original gravitas of the films because the films originally didn't have giggly points in it. There was almost nowhere that was funny. It was done like a Kurosawa film. You know, it was deep, it was dark, it was foreboding. And I was watching through and I went, like, that's like a couple of the Cloud City scenes when they're walking through and it's like this huge, airy, vast dome. That wasn't it, bro.
Like when they added the exteriors. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes. The exterior, the droids moving around, the other people. No. Cloud City felt like a janitorial closet from hell. The whole thing was a nightmare of just weird tube-shaped hallways and bad smells. There was nothing good about Bespin. Bespin was supposed to be like this, but this kingdom in the clouds. But in reality, they didn't go to the kingdom part of it. They were only in the underbelly of this thing, traveling secretly. So they were smuggling.
I know exactly what you mean, because in the original version that we saw come out in 1980, the Cloud City had kind of a claustrophobic aspect to it that gets completely lost when you add those windows and those exteriors in the special edition, and it kind of changes the whole tone and character of the second act of the picture.
It does, because the one of the things that always intrigued me was the fact that it felt so claustrophobic because it was so claustrophobic that Vader couldn't even hide from the droids. The droids accidentally stumbled across some stormtroopers and got disposed of real quick.
Yep.
It's so claustrophobic that just accidentally turning the wrong corner, and that doesn't look like the kind of thing that would accidentally happen in the remakes, you know, in the remasters. There's just, it appears so much airier and so much wider and more expanseful. It's just not likely. What's up, Arpol?
And the other one of the other things I don't like about the special editions is that I think unwittingly he diminishes his own achievement in some cases, because those original special effects shots that you achieved, those were remarkable, amazing achievements for the year in which you created them. And you shouldn't want to get rid of those. It's just because it looks slightly cheesy from our perspective 30 or 40 years later doesn't change the fact that it was a splendid achievement in the time in which you made it. So why not just keep it? Anytime I'm watching a 40 or 50 or 60 or 70-year-old movie, I want to see it the way that people saw it when it was brand new. And I don't think Star Wars should be any different.
Absolutely. I mean, I always compare it to something else that I view as being like in the same ballpark. So I would say that the special effects on Star Wars, or rather the Return of the Jedi, was equivalent to The Thing, right? The Thing come out. Imagine if Homie went back and redid The Thing and added a whole bunch of special effects jokes into it. Like nothing to actually improve the movie, but a bunch of slapstick comedy mixed into The Thing. It would completely...
and then he made it impossible to watch the original version that everybody loves.
I've got it. I've got all three of them on tape, on VHS. That's actually a good point.
Yeah, it wouldn't do anything for anybody. Everybody would hate it. With good reason they would hate it. Because when you start making wholesale changes to a thing that people are accustomed to, that they've been watching for a long time, and they're used to the way things go, and people don't like that. Don't mess with things that people have liked for a long time if you want them to keep liking you.
There's something a lot of old folks say, and it becomes something of a cliche, but at the same time, it's 100% accurate. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It's true. I'm guessing that's not hanging up on the refrigerator at Disney corporate HQ.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I don't believe that common sense is very common around them quarters.
But it will be fascinating to see, I think, if that rumor is true. If Disney is really going to sell off Star Wars, and more interestingly is if the guy who buys Star Wars is named George Lucas, and if he buys it for less than he sold it to him for in the first place. Because what kind of delicious poetic justice would that be?
From what I understood, right before he sold Star Wars, he had a plan of going into agreement with the writers, some of the writers, like a trifecta of writers that wrote for the extended universe, or was maybe Legends. I think it was Legends, right? And he wanted to go from the establishment of the New Republic to the fall of the New Republic due to the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. And that also includes, if you get a little bit sketchy on time frame, the entire Thrawn trilogy and duology all in one, because all of that happened within like a 10-year span. And so then at the end of that 10-year span, the New Republic has fallen because the Yuuzhan Vong has completely obliterated the Navy. But the thing about the Yuuzhan Vong is they can't really beat you up if you don't fight them. They have a really honor-bound culture, and the only way they can make war on you is if you fight them. And that's usually done through resistance. They show up and try to kill somebody, and somebody fights back, and then they declare war, and it's an absolute genocide.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. You're the expert on that expanded universe stuff.
It was better, in my opinion. There's a whole bunch of crap in there that's just crap, but at the same time, like, did you know that there was a series of young adult novels back in the? You got to do the thing. God damn it!
I got to do the thing. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius this evening. We hope you are having just a fantastic Memorial Day weekend, and we hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day tomorrow with those you love, and be sure and spare a thought from time to time for the brave men who paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we could have our Memorial Day and all the other stuff that we enjoy so much. Watch my stuff this week. Watch his stuff this week. We will see you next time around. Same bat times and bat channels. Have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?